10x your service design offering with Smaply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smaply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smaply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Thinking about joining our private design community? Now's the time. On November 1st, our annual membership goes up from €199 to €299. But here's the good news. Join before then, and you lock in the $199 price for life. That's lifetime access to all our courses, a personal coaching call, plus 24 office hour sessions with Gerry and the community every year. No increases, no surprises, just big value. Don't wait. Join us today. Link is in the description.
Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of This Is HCD. My name is Gerry Scullion, and I'm a human-centred service design practitioner based in the beautiful city of Dublin, Ireland. And today on the show, I'm delighted to welcome Johanna Lundqvist. Originally from Sweden and now living in Germany, Johanna is an artist and designer who spent 2 decades as a registered nurse, including many years in hospice and palliative care. And as a trigger warning, we do discuss in this episode end of life, and we talk about the process of dying as well. I'm really interested in understanding what we can learn as service designers, change makers, human-centered designers as well, what we can take away from the dying process in its current form, okay, and what works well, what doesn't work well. You'll hear us explore the Swedish memento mori message behind the sign in her studio, which says, "Consider the shortness of life, the certainty of death, and the length of eternity," and what it can teach us about how we live right now. There's 3 key things I wanted to really talk about in this episode. The first one is what dying teaches us about living. The real regrets Johanna heard at the bedside, purpose after retirement, and why relationships matter more than careers. The second thing is practical compassion at the end of life, how nurses read non-verbal cues, and the power of simple touch and presence, and the ways families can support without feeling helpless. And the third piece is reframing death in modern culture, from hospice movement to death doulas and small human rituals that bring choice and dignity back into the process. If this conversation really resonates with you, please do follow the show, leave a review, subscribe, do all the good stuff in the podcast app that you're listening to it. And if you're watching on YouTube, please do like the video, drop a comment with your takeaway and subscribe. It really helps us find more people who are just like you and find and discuss these important discussions. It's a fantastic episode. Johanna is a rock star. I know you're going to love it. Let's jump straight in. Johanna, I'm delighted to have you on the podcast. Maybe we'll start off for our guests. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do.
Yeah. Right now I live in Germany. I'm originally from Sweden. I am a nurse. Haven't been working as a nurse for about 10 years. I've been working as an artist and designer. But for about 30 years I was a registered nurse in Sweden. And for 10 of those I worked in hospice care, in palliative care. Wow. So that is my main subject and interest.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to be speaking at length today. But before we jump in, you mentioned just before we start recording that sign in the background for anyone who's watching on YouTube. Maybe give us a little bit of description of, what it's saying, first of all, because you mentioned it was in Swedish.
Okay.
What it means to you as well.
Well, the sign in my back, I don't know if everyone will be able to see it, but it's an old-fashioned picture frame. And it is from the beginning of the last century. And the text is in Swedish, and it says, "Betänk livets korthet, dödens visshet, och evighetens längd." And that means consider the shortness of life, the certainty of death, and the length of eternity. And basically, it's just a thing that we used to do in many, many centuries before. There's something called memento mori, which basically remember you're mortal, remember death. And we used to have that much more present in our lives earlier. And in the last about 100 years, we no longer have signs like this on the walls. If it's not more for fun, like a little joke, people will see like, haha,
Absolutely. And what does it mean to you? Well, what is that? It's there as a framed piece behind you. So, like, tell us a little bit about how it resonates with you.
I think it resonates with me because my interest is transition, and all that is about transition. One of my main interests, transitions in life, and how I think we should be considerate about how we live and where we live, and about death too, knowing that is coming in one way or another for all of us. It's a reminder. And also, I think it's quite beautiful. It's people talk about mindfulness. I think this is a kind of mindfulness.
Yeah, live in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned there that people in previous centuries were a lot more aware of death. Well, what do you think is stopping people from, or like in modern society, stopping people from realizing that death is as present as it is?
I think, especially, I talk about Western society. That's what I'm part of myself. And I mean, the world is a huge place and it's different.
Yeah.
The cultures are different all over. But in Western society, in the last 100 years, maybe, or so, or maybe 75 years, we have been more and more detached from death in the way that it's not so visible in our daily lives anymore. We used to have more generational living before industrialization, really, and also maybe 50 years after that. Now we sort of have living where people are getting old and they live in their own apartments, and if you get ill, most of us go to hospital. And if you're very ill, that's probably where you die. About 75% of everyone in Western society dies in hospitals, and relatives becomes visitors. They don't become part of
the process.
Of the process to some degree.
Yeah, and that's a nice segue into, that those 10 years that you mentioned there where you were working primarily as a hospice nurse. That transitioning period of moving from life to death, what's that experience like as someone who's observed death close up for 10 years? I know it's such a morbid subject for a lot of people, but I'm really interested to explore this topic because in some cultures it's taboo. Not in my culture. I'm Irish, and we celebrate death in a different way to other parts of the world. But I'd love to understand your own perspective of what that looks like.
The transition, how it is for the people that I have watched dying, is that or
exactly.
being
the people
gone
who
along
are dying,
with, actually,
who are dying, as opposed to the relatives, the family, or the hospitals call them visitors.
I must say, my absolutely biggest surprise when I started to work, and that kept surprising me all through those years, was how incredibly brave people are. Because we are all scared. It is really weird. We really, really don't know what's going to happen. And people are not only scared of what's going to happen after we're actually dead, but they're also scared of the dying process. The dying themselves, getting ill, being in pain, all these things that people think will going to happen and sometimes happen. But the people I met in hospice, if everything has gone really, really well, when we talk about palliative care, they have gone through a long illness by then. And they have gone through treatments, they have had different types of treatments, they have got the new hopes, and then the hopes have been broken because the treatments haven't worked the way it was hoped. And when they come to us, they know that death is going to happen. When they're in hospice, they know death is going to happen, and hopefully their relatives know that death is going to happen. And for most hospice patients, it happens. It is a pretty universal rule that when you are in a hospice, it's about 21 days is a median. Some are longer, some are much shorter, but about 21 days. So it's very finite. It's going to happen. And at that point, people are much calmer than, yes, we help with medications if there's anxiety, and there's physiological anxiety, there's psychological anxiety, and we can help with that and with pain. And if we have all that in check as best as we can, people just leave it to the very last moment they're awake. And then how people just deal with the loss of function, you know?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, I could go up and go to the bathroom myself. Now I need someone who walks with me. Okay. Yeah. People react differently to it. Basically, I usually say if you were very, very stubborn in life, you're going to be stubborn all the way into death, you know?
Really?
Yeah.
You can see those patterns.
Yeah. You're going to keep fighting it. Absolutely. If you were confrontational and loud, you're going to be confrontational and loud into the very end. It doesn't stop. It's your personality, and you might be swearing all the way to the very moment you don't speak anymore. It happens.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So one of the pieces, like, I guess from a service design perspective, sorry to bring it back to the cold functions of what, like, I know you studied design as well, but in terms of the kind of the control that you might have as a hospice nurse on that, is there any kind of governance around what you can and can't do in those instances, or are you given kind of free rein to just support where possible? What does that look like in terms of the freedom to respond to those requests?
I mean, there are rules and regulations when it comes to medications, of course. As a nurse, I can't decide what amount of which drugs a patient is going to have. I mean, I'm going to have a doctor's order for that. And what I do have is a range, so I can decide on my own. There's a range of different things that the doctor say you can combine these different things in a good combination that you think will work. So I will have a certain freedom within that framework. When it comes to support on a psychological level or physical level or mental, existential, there's basically it is the regular. We want to do no harm, and we want to help. Yeah. And however we need to do that, we do. Yeah. And we really try to listen to the person. Yeah. Yeah. Really need to hear what is it they want. It's not necessarily what I see is needed. I need to ask what they want. You know, one of my least favorite things in the world that people say you should treat people like you want to be treated. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that at all. I need to ask people how they want to be treated, because I might be completely wrong.
Yeah, true. Actually, when you say it out loud like that, I said, yeah, I agree. Like, you know, like I treat people with respect, but like sometimes people, you know, may have different perspectives on what that looks like. Especially when they're dying as well. Like sometimes they're non-verbal. How do you handle those kind of cues? Like, what does that look like? Because I know I haven't gone through my own father when he passed. I was there, and it was during COVID and all that kind of stuff.
I'm sorry.
Do you imagine the regulations would have been like a lot more stringent? But the nurses, this is where it all started for me. The nurses and all the care around it was just like mind blowing. I was like, wow, these people are walking angels. And that's as close, and I mean that, like when people say, oh, they're an angel, no, they are actually walking angels. They're there to help guide people into the next realm, whatever that might be. But how do you handle that non-verbal side? That was like something that I was like, wow, you're almost in a transitional space here, like in a liminality where you're able to understand those requests.
And we do. We get very good at seeing people, I would say. We do look very, very carefully. And some it just learned. You know, you look for what a person's face look like. Is it tense? Does it have a wrinkle between the eyebrows? That's probably can be anxiety, can be pain. Are they being physically anxious? They will have their hands up, you know, doing things, picking in the air. There's a physiological anxiety in that. And all those things, we don't want people to stop from moving around, but if you see this restlessness in the body, you do try to help with that. And you can do that in different ways. You can just make sure they know you are there by touch generally and words. But there's medications that we really can help with for these things. And so we look for those. We look for those signs. And we also look for, I mean, when we go in there and we are the angels, you say, what we do is also that we have a very clinical eye. we do look for the signs of what stage is this person in right now. We look at the feet. What does the toes look like? What do the fingertips look like? What does the nose tip look like? Yeah. So we are, in one way, we are just trained. We're really trained. But with experience, you also start to have a very, very strong sense of, there's something called the silent knowledge of nurses, and it sounds very woo, but it's also true. Sometimes you just know that something is happening, because we say it's nurses who have it because we are the ones that's generally closer to the patient for longer periods of time. The doctors have the medical knowledge, but they are not by the bedside as much.
Yeah.
And quite often when you as an experienced nurse come into a room, you can sense something is going on. I mean, anxiety smells in a special way. And I mean that quite literally. That you learn, because we exude stress hormones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And many of us can just pick that up. It's like, okay, something is going on. I don't know exactly. Yeah. But I need to keep an extra eye here.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I remember when I lived in Australia, I used to work with this really great designer called Farooq Avdi, and he introduced me to the work of Robin Youngson, who's in New Zealand. And I think he was working I think he's a doctor, but Farooq mentioned to me at the time that there was scientific evidence to show that when people were going in to have surgery, that touch, just generally holding that person's hand as they were being administered drugs for anaesthesis, they saw an increase in recovery speed. And that whole kind of connection between just holding somebody's hand kind of has all these extra benefits to it.
I think touch is one of the absolutely most important parts of the human experience, to be honest, not only within a caring setting. Without touch, we wither. We are social beings supposed to have a group around us. And I'm not only talking a partner or sex or anything, just the physical touch of being able to have a hug sometimes, or sitting beside someone, knowing that they're there, holding a hand. Yeah. It's vital. That touch. When I was working in a nursing home many years ago, and that was not a palliative care unit, but it was very old people with dementia, so they were there and died too. At the time, we gave quite a lot of sleeping medication to patients. We were very short-staffed. This was in the early 80s, mid-80s rather, and we were quite short-staffed, and people were put to bed way too early, so they woke up way too early, and that was sort of said being that they didn't sleep well and they got drugs. It was not very nice care.
Yeah.
But what we realized, or what I started to do, I like to sing. I like songs, and one way that I enjoy communicating with people with dementia, and it's even more nowadays, that even if you don't remember your family or you don't remember your words anymore, you might remember your songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially the songs you sang as a child.
Yeah.
So I would sit and sing with my old people there. All the lullabies that they had when they sang for their own children, or that they had their mum or dad sing for them way back then. Yeah. And when I come to touch, is that the rubbing of the forehead, and this is something, I don't know if you've seen that, but vets do that with animals quite a lot to calm them down. They rub the forehead. This works with people too. So that works better than any sleeping pill sometimes,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just the touch, the knowing that someone is there to convey a memory of a time when you maybe were very safe and very happy.
Yeah.
As a child. So
providing care, and I mean that like in an attentive sense. I remember for anyone who's part of the community, the This Is HCD community, I mentioned last year that I was reading Bronnie Ware's book, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. To much kind of like amusement from my family. They're like, why are you reading that? And I was like, because there's so much to learn from, life as it's moving on, Have you read that book? Do you know the book, Bronnie?
I know the book. I haven't read it.
You haven't read it?
No.
And I'm just keen to understand your own perspective on that. Like, have you ever had those kind of pre-stages before they fall into that, that final stretch of death? Any experiences that maybe you can share with us on the wisdom of, how people have lived their lives and what some of those regrets might be?
Yeah. I think the greatest regrets, and I know this was probably what was said in this book as well. I've seen research, and I can only agree with this, is that the one hugest regret, especially in Western society, again, is that people didn't spend enough time with friends and family.
Yeah.
That they took their work and their career a bit too serious. They always felt they pushed things they wanted to do into the future. We're going to do this when we're retired. I quite often had patients who said, because they got ill, maybe it is not very uncommon that you get a cancer or another illness just around retirement age. It's very common because transitions, even good or bad transitions in life, will be a stress for your body, and that can just kickstart something.
Yeah.
And that I heard so many times when people say we were supposed to do so many things when we were retired, and now we won't be able to do it. So I think that not doing things they want to do during life, and especially with friends and family, that is the biggest. And then of course, not talking to each other, just pushing things under the carpet that they should have brought up. Having quarrels with relatives and not trying to mend it. All that comes up towards the end. And when you're at the end, that's generally not the time to fix it. When you're dying, it's not the time to fix it. That should have been done earlier. And that's why, there's another why, again, the sign. Remember that we don't have an infinite amount of time in this life. If you have regrets, try to deal with them as soon as you can.
Yeah, that's true. The working and focusing on your career is something that I've heard time and time again, like from people who are older. We said, don't stop working so hard. Like, stop going upstairs. I work in my attic. This is where I am. So work is always within kind of close proximity to my life, with my family and my kids. There was a piece there that you mentioned, which has just jumped out of my mind at the moment around the next piece. I'm going to have to cut this out. I was about to make a segue there and I forgot what it was. But generally speaking, how do you see how you've learned all of these different aspects from working with people who are passing on? How has that affected you as a human, as a practitioner, in your own life?
Yeah. People quite often have asked me if I get afraid of dying, because I have seen so many points, are you afraid of death? Are you afraid of dying? And I said, not for a second. I'm very afraid of not living while I am still alive.
That's a good quote there.
Yeah.
That's a good quote there.
That I would say that is the one, the one thing. I went to the bank once. I had inherited some money. The bank guy, who was very, very young, one of these really, in Swedish we call them young lions, on the go, I'm going places kind of guy. And he looked at this lump sum I had, and he was, I would buy a car, or you do this, and then half of this you should invest in money, in some sort of saving account that you can get to in 30 years. And I'm kind of, what do you mean 30 years? I don't know if I'm alive in 30 years. I will not be alive after Christmas, True. And this is how our brains work. Why think long term when we have no idea? Because I've seen so many people who were absolutely thought they have another 40 years in front of them, and then they didn't see another Christmas. Yeah,
absolutely.
And with this is very important that my experience is, of course, very, very what's the word in English? Twisted, because of course I see the people who didn't get cured. Most people with cancer get cured these days. They really do. Or they can live for a very long time, symptom-free or cancer-free before it comes back.
Yeah, that's true.
And the people I saw were the ones that didn't. Yeah. But that still shapes my way of living or my view of life, because that's what I saw mostly.
So I know what it was that I was going to say to you. I interviewed Hector Garcia, who wrote 2 very popular books in Ikigai, which is a Japanese piece around your kind of like what you're good at, what society needs, what you can get paid for, and so forth. And the intersection of all those in a Venn diagram is kind of what you should be doing with your life. You know, that's the bits that you're really interested in. And he's got statistics to show that people who retire without a purpose, who retire too abruptly, they see a dramatic increase in serious health implications, which is why I think I see it less amongst human-centered designers and service designers in particular, because there seems to be this drive, this fire, that people realize that there is potential there to change systems, and they carry that forward into later life, hopefully. But generally speaking, that purpose piece, I'm keen to understand, you know, what advice, based on, you know, the people that you've helped move on to the next life, if you want to say it like that. What advice would you give to people who are kind of struggling to find that purpose at the moment in their own life, so they can help, you know, live a more meaningful life?
Yeah, be kind to yourself. To start with, don't be too hard on yourself. And don't stop looking, but don't stress too much about not finding it. Yeah. Reach out to people. Trust people. Try to trust people.
Yeah.
Because we are nothing on our own. We really are nothing on our own. We need to ask people for help. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the bells in the background as well.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
When you're saying that, when you're talking about purpose and the bells start ringing, anyone listens to that and they hear the bells in the background, that is an indication that this is a stand-up moment to go and try and work and connect with people as well. But just going back to those experiences of when you were working as a nurse and people were, the relatives, the family members were part of it. You mentioned there, and you touched on Western society, on 75% of people will die in hospitals. What other cultures are you aware of that treat that kind of passing, that process a little bit differently, just so we can explore other cultures and how they do it maybe more humanely and more ethically, in terms of they get to choose where they want to die and how they want to die? I mean, people choose to have babies at home and in hospitals and out in different locations. But it doesn't seem to have that freedom as well so much in Western society. It has to be in a hospital. That's where you need to go to get the medical care.
I think it is changing. I think that's the truth as it was up until, I would say, pre-pandemic.
Right.
Because if something has changed and brought death closer to us, even if we didn't lose someone in the COVID epidemic, it certainly brought death closer to us because it was so much in media.
Yeah.
And we were so aware, and it did affect all of our life with the different restrictions. But I also think because during the COVID epidemic, people couldn't be by the bedside in the same way as they could before.
Yeah.
That just showed how incredibly important it is that relatives are allowed to be part of the process. But I mean, this is the hospice movement has been going on for what we have 60 years now, if not more. And that was a reaction to how people started to die in factory hospitals, basically.
Yeah.
And people had 2 hours to come and visit, and then they had to leave, and people didn't die with a relative by their side. If they died with a staff member by their side, they were lucky, you know.
Yeah.
And so the hospice movement was created as a reaction against that. And I think and I think the palliative movement, that we talk more about palliative care now, which is more the widespread term. I think that is developed. And I think people are getting more interested because people in general want to have more control over their lives. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think they actually start thinking about, if they start thinking about death, they will think about alternatives as well. And I would say, if we talk about service design, I must say that within this realm of death and dying, the funeral services for a long time have been very well planned. I mean, they are very, very well aware about that they are delivering a service. Yeah.
Yeah.
If they were good is a different thing, but it's certainly a very well thought through service. And with time, people have been able to affect what the look of the coffin will be like. You know, you can now choose. You can now choose if you want to be cremated, or if you, interment, and what type of coffin you want. We were just at me and Adam, we were just at a funeral or a memorial service where the grandson had built a coffin out of the lady's favorite bed that she had designed herself in the 70s. So that was the coffin that she got cremated in her own bed. So,
wow.
Yeah. So I think we are getting there slowly, but we still need to talk about it for many reasons, both on personal levels, but also societal level. Yeah.
Where do you think religion plays the role in what happens and what doesn't happen? Is there still some sort of stronghold to those times and past? I remember Joe McLeod, who has been on the podcast twice, where he speaks about ends and ends of services. He spoke about the difference between Protestantism, you know the word I'm trying to say, and the way Catholics look at death. The way we bring our dead home usually, and we have a wake, whereas in Protestantism,
that one.
I need to get that right because my wife's a Protestant. Protestantisms. They tend to put people into funeral homes as a default, and I'd be keen to understand your own thoughts on that. Like, where are the bits that are holding us back to create a more humane and a more sort of inclusive service around death?
I think religion can do both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think religion can be very, very helpful in some instances because it provides a framework of belief that might be very helpful. And sometimes in a situation of crisis, it's good to have a framework to work within because you are thrown into some sort of chaos. Your entire world has changed. Suddenly a person that you've had there all your life is nowhere in the world anymore. That's a huge change. And suddenly you are expected to make all these decisions within maybe the next couple of weeks. And then it's good to have both. If you have a religion and a belief, it's good to have a spiritual person to lean on and talk to. If you don't have a belief, it's good to have someone else to talk to too.
Yeah.
So I think religion can be an enormous support, but it can also be a huge limitation.
Yeah.
I have seen people who are dying, people who are deeply religious. I've seen extremes. I mean, there are in-betweens too, but the extremes that I have seen are either the ones who just can't wait because they're going to rest in the arms of the Lord. They know that they will see their relatives again and they are going to go to heaven and that's going to be wonderful. So they just can't wait. Yeah. There are also people who are deeply religious. And actually it was a vicar I'm thinking about right now. He was terrified of dying because he thought that he had been so sinful that he would never be forgiven. And what he thought he had done, I have no idea. He never spoke about that. But he just thought that he had been such a sinner, he would be so judged, and he was terrified.
Yeah.
So religion can be very, very scary as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it can be very helpful.
Yeah. I want to talk to you about something just before we start moving into the final stages of this podcast, not of life. Just put that disclaimer out there. there's a couple of YouTube channels out there, which hopefully I'm not going to get too kind of hippy-dippy over, where they talk about the stages beyond death. People who've had near-death experiences and come back from that. You mentioned in the pre-conversation to this episode that, people see things in the room, and I'd love to get your thoughts and experiences, ideally, on what that looked like, and also what it felt like in the room where you believe that there was potentially other people in the room that you couldn't see.
Yeah, it is more common than people think.
Yeah.
The person dying communicates, sees, feels a presence. And it can be of someone who died. It can also be someone who lives and is far away in a different part of the world. But generally, it is a loved one that come back. What does it feel like? I never ever doubt people. I never tell if someone says that their dead wife is standing by their bedside, I would never say no, there's no one here. I would just take it for the reality that this person is experiencing at that one time. What it is they're experiencing, we don't know. Is it a physiological reaction that our brain is creating because we need solace and consolation in this moment that is very, very difficult? Could be. Maybe it's our brains are really, really smart in that way, so our brain chemistry does this. Or is it something else? It's not up to me to say at all, but I absolutely see that people who have this experience, in 95% of the time, it is calming, it is helping, it is loving, it is a good experience, and it's never anything that we would try to medicate away, because there's a difference. There's hallucinations as well, and they are generally not very, very pleasant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is a definite difference between hallucinations and these deathbed experiences.
But there's definitely a consistency between the narratives of people who don't know each other. Like
No, I'm not going to say it happens to everyone, because it doesn't at all. But it is not uncommon. It's not uncommon at all.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be people. It can be pets. It can be.
I was just about to say, we'd mentioned about that before we were speaking, but I noticed in Ireland they have this thing called RIP.ie, which is a place when you die, people put the funeral arrangements up there, but there's also condolences. So you can, people, like a social media piece, but it lives on. And Ireland last week just announced another version of that, but for pets. And pets play such an important role in support and companionship and love. Like, I've got a dog now, and my God, like, I absolutely adore the dog, and they provide that kind of support in the pieces. But some of the stories that I've read around the dogs and cats as well, like whenever people are dying, they're aware that something is happening.
Absolutely.
They see something is happening in the room. And that really struck me because, I hadn't really given that much thought. And then there's all these stories of when people are passing on, that they see the dog who may have passed on 10 or 15 years before sitting alongside them.
Absolutely.
And I find it really, really reassuring that this consistency and this sort of thread of these patterns, if you want, that are there for people to watch and see. It gives us some sort of comfort. What's your own experience? Have you...
yes.
Yes to all of that. Just yes, Gerry.
Yes. My own experience. I obviously didn't die because, I'm sitting right here.
Yeah.
But I was very, very ill last summer. I ended up in hospital and I had a sepsis, and it was quite bad, and I was in intensive care. And because of the sepsis, or because of the medication, I had quite a lot of hallucinations. And that's why I say hallucinations is a completely different animal, because that was scary and nasty, and I didn't dare to talk to people about it because I wanted my drugs because I was in so much pain. But anyway, but at one point, at the height of this sepsis, the entire room went completely white. It was a blinding white, but it wasn't uncomfortable. And I felt a weight on my chest. And I looked down, and my 3 dead cats were laying on my chest, in order.
Wow.
Like this. And they were just laying there. And the one who laid on my top chest, she was just putting her head up against my face like this, like consoling me and purring. And they just lay there. And I was aware that, okay, this is not an hallucination. This is something else. And I was thinking, I think I know what this is. I think this is one of those deathbed things. Am I dying? I don't know, but I didn't care. I was aware, but I was thinking I don't care because I want my cats here. They were such a consolation. Yeah. And they just were beautiful. And I don't know how long they were there. I guess I fell asleep from it.
Yeah.
And when I woke up, my sepsis had turned and I was getting better. But that was at the height of my illness, So that was probably the turning point, basically, where it could have gone any old way.
A fork in the road.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. And the cats came and said, whatever happens, we're here. That's what it felt like. And I'm just thinking now that when it's my time for real, the cats will be there again, and I couldn't be happier,
Yeah. At least, that's so reassuring, not only for you, but for listeners as well, that we've got that first-hand experience. Johanna, I want to give a shout out, because when we were talking before, you mentioned that you are available to support people who maybe have loved ones who are going through this process at the moment, and they want some guidance on how to really do that. So that's actually a service that you provide, right?
Yes, absolutely. I can be a conversation partner. I can give guidance. I can't get medical advice, of course, because I won't be the nurse or the doctor for this person. But I can certainly explain symptoms. I can explain. Quite often people say they sound... Huh?
It's like a doula.
Yeah, it's exactly like a doula. It's a deaf doula. It's even a concept. A deaf doula. You just guide through the process like an extra support person. But I can also be just a conversation person. I quite often have had people who are in the situation where the relationship with the dying person is not the best. And now it's coming to a point where there's no way they're going to change it. And there's so much sadness and anxiety and sometimes anger. And just having a conversation around that can be really, really helpful. And I can be a conversation partner like that and have done that several times.
If only I'd have known you 5 years ago. I was estranged from my father for 25 years. Yeah. And when I got the phone call that he was dying, that happened a few times before, and I was like, yeah, really? And I didn't know. The only thing I got the phone call, and it was during COVID. The kids were in the car. We were looking at airplanes just landing at the airport. And I was like, no, this one feels different. And it was like, no, this is happening. But I'd known during COVID, especially, not many people had anyone. But that support that you provide there is invaluable. So I imagine there's people out there who might be going through something similar. It'd be an amazing support to have something like that. This topic is still kind of taboo, in lots of cultures, talking about death. Why would you want to talk about that? I'm fascinated by it. And you are available to speak about this topic.
Absolutely.
At length. So people who are out there who are running conferences who maybe want to kind of have something that's a little bit in their world left field, but in my world center field, to be clear. I love this topic.
Yeah.
So that would be a phenomenal addition to some conferences to really kind of shake things up.
Yeah. I try to. I've done conferences, and what I try to do is I try to be as interactive as possible.
Yeah.
I give little tasks. I ask people to do things, think things, little exercises, which just makes people think, which are really, really, for instance, I quite often ask people to think about their most romantic death. What is your romantic death? which is a ridiculous thing, but we all have somewhere an imagination about what is the best thing. Will I lay in a field under an oak in the sunset, and all my friends will be having a picnic around me, and I will just listen to the birds and slowly float away into eternity? And that's my romantic death. That's how I wish it would be. I most likely won't have it, but it's my romantic wish for how I would like to die. And then when you have that, you can start thinking, out of this crazy nut idea, what can happen? What can we do about this?
Absolutely.
And who should I talk about?
Those two words have never come together in my mind, romantic death.
No.
It got me thinking.
Yeah.
And it really has got me thinking. Like, as you see in the movies, people, like, as you said, falling asleep under an oak tree with the sound of the birds above, and you're like, as you said, 75% of people die in
hospital.
Sterile room in a hospital.
Yeah. And most people don't lay under. I mean, it might be very hard to lay under that oak tree with all my friends around me, But maybe I can have birdsong on the. Maybe I can have birdsong on a recorder, a tape even, just so I can have the birdsong. You can start thinking about these things. Yeah. The way I try to make people think is I have exercises like I ask people to say out loud, one day I will die. It's basically turn against the next person and say, hi, my name is Johanna. One day I will die. Oh, okay. That is easy enough. But then we turn that, and the next time you say, hey, my name is Johanna. I will die on Monday. Yeah. Yeah. And what is the difference of feeling or there when you suddenly have a set date that's not very far away? Yeah. And the interesting thing is that many people won't do that. Because we are superstitious beings. In all our modernity and all our science, we are still scared that we will call things to us by saying them out loud.
I know.
Yeah.
Johanna, like, I could speak to you, and hopefully I will get to speak to you at length in person someday. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to put a link to your website. It's deathtalk.online.
Yep.
Is it correct? For people to go and check it out. But you're also on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So we'll put a link to your LinkedIn in there in the show notes for the episode as well. Are you okay if people connect with you on LinkedIn and ask questions?
Absolutely. I'd just be happy to. And any questions, even a talk like this can cause people to need a communication.
For sure.
And if people drop me a message, I will respond.
Brilliant. Johanna, I wrap every episode on This Is HCD by thanking the guests for their time, their energy, and their vulnerability, okay? Because we don't script questions on This Is HCD. So I go left, I go right. Johanna doesn't know which way I'm going to go in this conversation. So it takes a certain amount of vulnerability, and I really appreciate you allowing me to do that. So thank you so much for giving me your time and space today.
Thank you. It was fun. Actually fun. And thank you for giving me an hour of your time.
No problem. Anytime.